Welcome back to Lower Keys Living, everybody. Today's video, this is really for first-time boaters, new boaters down here in the Florida Keys. Going to give you some tips for navigating safely through the water, some advice on how to find your way around so you can get to beautiful spots like this safely with a little bit of peace of mind and take some of that stress out of your vacation or your stay here in the Florida Keys. Or if you're new to boating down here in the Florida Keys, live down here and just starting to get into boating, hopefully this will help provide you with some information and make things a lot easier for you. But there's so many beautiful spots, but it can be tricky getting around. Um, Here, this is a sandbar out on the Gulf of Mexico side. This is out on Turkey Basin, one of the bigger bays out on the Gulf of Mexico side, the north side of the Keys. One thing to keep in mind on these is that the Florida Keys, we are the third largest barrier reef in the world. We are built on top of coral reef, so our bottoms are hard. So one of the reasons you really want to be careful with how you're navigating, where you're going, is you can do a lot of damage to your prop, your lower unit, and your boat if you're not careful and you're being a little reckless with what you're doing. So we see it all the time down here. So hopefully this will help straighten that out. I'm also going to be panning around here a little bit, kind of explaining so you can see some of the different watercolors. And then in a minute or two, I'm going to get into some images, some satellite images, and really explain how things work and how to navigate down here and what to look for with your navigation charts, what you can trust and what you can't trust on those. Here you're looking at a massive seagrass bed on the right and then a shallow sand water on the left. But that kind of turquoise water, just the lower center of your screen, that channel, it's a nice deep channel that runs all the way from Turkey Basin out to Marvin Key. The problem is that the entrance to that, to get in here, to make it to that channel is a little sketchy, a little tough, because you do have to come across a fairly shallow seagrass bed to get in there. You can do it and it's navigable, but got to know where the entrance to that channel is and really be up on plan, especially at the mid to low tide ranges. Here you can see the edge of this sandbar and the water drops off. So the water, not where the brown there in that lower left unit is, but further out, it's fairly deep. So these, you can drive your boat right up to the sandbar. Another thing I'll be talking about are these bully stakes. These are these stakes that you see on the left that are put out by private citizens, not official navigation places, but people have put those out there to help find their ways. This one defines a really narrow slot. It's usually just a PVC pipe cemented into a concrete block with a traffic cone on top. So with that, I am going to jump into a few slides that'll help give you some information and hopefully get you set on your way for boating down here. So stay tuned and we will jump into those slides right now. All right, let's jump into this. So this is the lower Florida Keys. Typically, people define the lower Florida Keys. Key West is its own little beast down there. So from Stock Island on the west end out to Bay of Honda State Park on the east end. And again, this is north and the Atlantic Ocean is south. So we run east to west here in the lower Florida Keys. And this is it. So I'm based here on Cudjoe Key, right in the center of everything. Love this area, really enjoy it. Definitely my favorite part of the Florida Keys down here. So a little closer look at this. So one thing to understand is when you've got the Gulf of Mexico up here, the Atlantic Ocean up here, the tide runs in between those two. So ingoing out tides wash back and forth. So the channels are constantly getting flushed, which is nice because it repopulates them with lobsters, fish, constant flow of nutrients in here, which makes this area so great for backcountry fishing, bone fishing, you name it, we've got it down here in the lower Florida Keys. And also one thing to keep in mind when you're learning to navigate down here, because the water flows through these canals, and this is the entrance to the Kemp and Niles channel. So this is the Kemp channel, cuts over here, this is a little raccoon channel, and it leads into Niles channel out here. Then you've got Pine channel and Bay of Honda channels further up. But these channels with the current flowing back and forth through these and washing through, most of the sandbars that you need to watch out for run north to south. They run parallel to these channels. You can see as the current comes in, it's laying all these down. You rarely see, it's not never, but a sandbar down here running east to west. So keep in mind, if you're on course, you're running through the channel going north to south, and you're in clear water, chances are you're going to stay in clear water. Now, there are exceptions to that, so keep in mind nothing's a rule. And I'm going to show you this one pretty close here in a second. This one runs a bit north and south, but it's diagonally across the bow channel, but a popular route to run it here, so knowing how to get through that is key to getting access out there, especially from some of the popular places. Again, the big residential areas here on Cudjoe Key. You got the KOA campground, which has a beautiful marina right here, and lots of residents out here. So this is a heavily used channel, and it's great access to Turkey Basin and some of the great sandbars. It's also a nice shortcut for me living here on Cudjoe Bay to get out to the Gulf without having to go all the way around to go out the Kemp Channel. So again, tip number one here is remember sandbars typically run north to south, that shallower water. Not an absolute rule, but in general. Next thing to keep in mind looking at it, we are built on a coral reef. The Florida Keys are the third largest barrier reef in the world, next to the Great Barrier Reef and the Palantar Reef in Belize. We are number 3, which means we are limestone rock underneath, maybe some sand on top, some seagrass, but if you run into the bottom, you can do some damage definitely to your lower unit, your prop, if not your boat, and worse. So we see it regularly out here. So that's number 2, is remember we are riding on top of rock almost all the time. So don't go any faster than you're willing to hit something if you're if you're new to boating down here and getting used to reading the water. A couple of things that I do want to point out as well is don't always trust your navigation charts, any paper charts, your navigation charts, because they show things that may or may not be there anymore. And I'll be a little more specific and show you here an example. But again, this is Kemp Channel coming on out, one of the major channels. Gives you great access, especially this is a nice deep channel. If you've got a larger boat and you want to go to Marvin Key or Snipe Key, or over here to the beautiful Content Keys, some of our favorite areas and beautiful sandbars. There's a little narrow slot you can get in here with the big boat to enjoy this massive sandbar in here, or just enjoying these beautiful islands. So again, don't always trust your charts, but there are ways to get through things just about anywhere down here. Big boats or small boats, you can navigate a lot of area down here either way. So one of the reasons I don't like trusting my charts, this is a screen grab from my Garmin Navi Onyx unit on my tablet. I use a sail-proof tablet. The thing's almost bomb-proof. And I keep that with me, whether I'm on my big boat or the flats boat, take it with me. But what I wanted to show you, it shows these navigation markers. Here at the entrance of the Kemp Channel out into the Gulf of Mexico, we're coming back in. And then these 2 markers off the Kemp Channel, this divide, if you were going to the Niles Channel, you would take this channel right through here. And some of the charts show this little section in here is Raccoon Channel connecting over to Niles Channel. But what I want to say is these markers, they'll show on charts, but they are no longer there. I understand these got washed away during Hurricane Irma, but if you're coming in and you're looking for markers to find your way, don't. A lot of times they're not there. Again, not sure if I just said this, but I believe Hurricane Irma took these out. Another thing not to trust is this little gap, and I've shown you this on a few other videos coming out here to these sandbars at Sawyer Key. There is a little cut right through this sandbar that you can get through with a flats boat or a really shallow bay boat. Let you come right across, cut through the sandbar, but it shows these bully stakes here. Those bully stakes do not exist, and I have never seen them in all the years I've been down here, but yet the charts show those on there. And from the time I've been down here, this is filled in a little bit, and the cuts opened up a little further down here before than it used to be. So it keeps moving, but yeah, these bully stakes aren't there. So again, don't trust your navigation unit and everything that's there, which is why it's important to learn to read the water, learn to read the color of the water. And then again, as I was saying, because this is north going this way, up in here, this is south, and you can see here off of Riding Key and Sawyer Keys, the current's coming through. Look at how the sandbar runs parallel to the current. The sandbars aren't going to build up in the current. They're going to get pushed off to the side. So you can say this shallow area in here is building up. Where these two channels divide, you get another sandbar that's built up in here. And again, you can see 1 foot deep, 1 foot deep, 1 foot deep, all across through here. So keep in mind, don't trust your navigation units, your navigation charts to have that the markers are going to be there where they say they are. So this is going a little further west from that one. This is the bow channel. This is the one that I use frequently to get out to the sandbars. And I come out here to Turkey Basin, this area. I do a lot of bone fishing, snapper fishing out here in the basin. Loads of great flats when you get tucked up in here against some of these keys. But as you're coming out, if you're looking at your chart and you saw this, and then you see this whole area is only a foot deep through here, you would think, oh man, there's no way I can get out through. Bow channel would be off limits for me. Even here, this is questionable, but coming through here underneath the bow channel bridge from the overseas highway, you can come out and just stay shade that way coming up here. But these two red circles, I've dropped these in on my units. There are two bully stakes here that mark a really narrow, it's about 20 feet, if that, wide cut that cuts through here, that lets you cross this. What the bully stakes don't tell you, and remember this, bully stakes are not official stakes. They're not put out by the government. These are a lot of individuals that will come in and drop those to help them find channels. And, you know, it helps visitors out when they're coming out here to find things, but they don't tell you which side to go on. So if you're coming out, and especially on a windy, choppy day, and you can't really read the water that well, when the water's cloudy, you can't tell deep from shallow that way. There's no way to know which side of these stakes to go on. And if you're on the wrong side, you're in this super shallow water, a foot of water or less. And I'll show you a satellite image of this that shows you how often this is hit. But for the sake of this one, you need to keep the markers just to your right side on the way out, left side on the way back, and you need to hug these markers because it is a narrow channel. And then the other access point is this long sandbar. Again, it's running north to south here, just a few inches deep. And there's a bully stake on this one, but whoever put it here didn't put it at the end of the sandbar. So this catches a lot of people a lot of times. Almost every weekend I'll see people coming up because you got to hug these two to stay in the channel. So people are coming out here assuming that they need to hug this one the same way to make it around. And nope, you actually need to come up and go about 75 yards past it to stay in the deeper water to make it through. So again, bully stakes, they can be helpful, but don't risk your life in your boat on bully stakes being accurate. And then just another example over here, on most charts there shows a little marker. You can barely see this marker right in here. There is a massive coral head in here that sits about 6 inches below the water. But that marker is not there. So you can't see it, especially on a windy, choppy day. If you're looking close enough to look for, you can see waves breaking on top of that boulder head. But again, because it's at the feeding entrance to get out to Marvin Key, people hit that all the time. I think I've seen probably a half dozen lower units destroyed on that coral head over the last few years. Just people flying across. You know, they're seeing this, the deeper water coming in here to sneak by the sandbars to head on out to Marvin Key. You're looping right in here, and they hit that without seeing it. So things to be careful for out here. And there's a few of those big coral heads out in here randomly that are not marked. I found them just because I spend so much time out here lobstering and fishing, but things that aren't marked. And again, here's an even closer up view of that. This is that slot. It sits right through here where those bully stakes are. But again, this is a navigation chart and it does not show you that slot anywhere on here. It doesn't say anything about bully stakes. And this is Garmin's. I just downloaded this. This is a new update from Garmin tonight. So again, it does not show you that this exists. So knowing that that exists helps. And then the fact that the bully stake on this one sits right about here. Here you have to hug the bully stakes. And again, if you hug this one, you're not going to do well. You actually have to come up here, a little deeper water, and then hook back down and out. This sandbar has extended down even further, which makes this as a bit more of a pronounced S to get out to Turkey Basin. But on a nice flat day, you can read the water. You can see this. These are nice and brown, shallow. It's kind of a mix of rocky sand and seagrass on these flats. And on flat days with no wind, you can clearly see it. You can see where you need to go. But on windy, choppy days, it makes it a little tougher. So again, one of my top recommendations, and I'll say this over and over again, if you're new to boating down here, not super comfortable, I really highly recommend going to one of the boat rental companies and renting a bay boat or a flats boat that has a GPS unit with these routes pre-programmed. Tell the operator where you would like to go, have them pull that route up so you can follow it. It'll get you really comfortable with doing it, and then bring along your portable GPS unit, either your phone or a tablet, turn it on and record your track. That way you can follow the track that's on the boat. Meanwhile, your unit is recording that track. And if you do that enough times, you can lay your own tracks, have them on your GPS units. My phone, my tablet are all synced up to my GPS, built-in GPS units on both the flat boat and the big boat. So I've got all those routes recorded on there. I was fortunate when I first moved down here. I had a neighbor that was really excited about having somebody that was as big into fishing as he was. And we took his flats boat out, my flats boat out, but he brought his unit with him when we were on mine. I brought my portable units with that. So I was actually able to record a lot of the routes that I use today by going with somebody that knows the water and recording those routes. The nice thing, if you do that, you've got those routes recorded, you know those are the safe routes. It lets you really focus and look at the water around you and learn the watercolors, learn the little nuances. Even on windy, choppy days, you can see the notice of how the waves are reacting over shallow water. Is it flattening them out? Are there little choppy waves breaking at a certain spot? What's causing that break? Really helps you to get to know and read the water. And it's nice when you got a route you can follow and let you focus on learning how to read the water when you're first down here. So here is that satellite photo of those same spots. So again, this is your bow channel. This is that little slot, and you can see it's a super narrow entrance in here. Again, this is a foot or less of water, even at high tide on either side of that. So there is not a room of margin for error. So you really need to hug this. Again, that other buoy marker is up here. So you got to come up, but remember, you got to come up here to this deeper spot up here and then cut through up in here, and then you're going to make your turn out this way. So it's almost like a pronounced S. Again, this sandbar is comes down a little further now after the last couple of tropical storms we've had come by. So it is a more of a pronounced S on here. But I do like reading these satellite maps, especially Google Earth, really studying and seeing where things are. You can zoom in, you can find different cuts. This one will connect you over to Kemp Channel, but the navigation across here is really tricky. So there are cuts in different places that helps you get around. But I would say find an established route that you know and spend time on that route, knowing that you're boating in a safe spot, but looking at the watercolors and getting to know the waters. The other thing I do a lot of with the flats boat as I'm getting to new areas is I can come in, tuck up really close with the flats boat. But if I want to see, hey, can I motor and get in here? Simple for me, I'll put the engine up and I just use the push pull so I can pull the boat in. And sometimes I'll say, oh, I can get all the way across here with the engine, or yep, I do need to push pull the boat across here. But getting to know it in a nice, simple, safe way is a great way to learn the area. Again, zooming in on that slot a little bit more, you can see this little area. This is right where the first buoy marker is. The other one is right up in here. And again, you can see how narrow this slot is. I measured this out on Google Earth, and it came out to be 15 feet at the entrance. Get a little more leeway out in here. But again, just a few inches of water. If you enter this, you can see how close this was on the other side of the buoy stake, and they're leaving tracks. Yep, I see more big boats buried on this, even flat boats just getting stuck on this all the time, not realizing how close they have to hug this. And obviously, these folks did not know what side of the buoy stake they were supposed to be on. So this is out at Turkey Basin, and this particular sandbar is one of my favorites. But this is out by Marvin Key, and here you've got the Gulf of Mexico up in here. So Gulf of Mexico, once you're out in the Gulf of Mexico, plenty of deep water, lots of safety all the way. You can run all the way up to Content Keys. just a beautiful area. And there's great access for big boats to get out there, so you can get into some of these sandbars from the Gulf of Mexico side without having to worry about this. But what I want to look at here is just take a moment and look at different color water that's in here. So first of all, really shallow water down in here, just a few inches deep. This is my corgi. He's got little 6-inch stubby legs. You know, it's up to his chest, but super shallow water in here. As you move out a little bit more, you see the water gets a little more turquoise color the deeper it gets out into this area, which would be your deepest water for this spot. And this is when you got a sandy bottom. Look for that darker turquoise water. You know, it's a lighter blue on top of the sand here. This is still passable, but you want to stay out here in this deeper turquoise water. Again, these, when you hear that term brown run aground, that's largely referring to these great big grass flats that are all over the place. And then out here, you can see the sandbar, the tannish water. This isn't brown, but it's a tan. That's a sandbar that comes up at really low tide. But again, this is the main channel that I use to get out to Marvin Key, and this cuts through, but it really narrows down out in the salt flats out, or seagrass out that way. The main channel that bigger boats use coming out, especially from Sugarloaf Key and the Sugarloaf boat ramp, is they're coming through this channel over here. The only thing, it gets a little tricky trying to get this little passage into the deep water. But the folks that have come out here have seen big center consoles, quad engines making it through there, no problem. They know what they're doing. But again, this is all that tannish, brownish seagrass bed right through here that you need to be super careful for. And you can see the different patches of deeper water, shallow water. But once you learn to read that from water level, your boating pleasure and confidence is going to go sky high. So just look for those as you're out there. But I always like these sandy channels. And again, the sand piles up on either side, but this has a really strong current going in and out whenever the tide changes. Here's a more pulled back view of that same shot. Again, little corgi still down here in the water. You can see this nice deep turquoise colored water in here. You've got your seagrass bed on either side of this channel, and this one stays super shallow all the way through here. But if you're taking this channel or the larger boat channel that comes in, you can get in here and all the way out here, and then you got really nice deep water all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico here. And this is the big sandbar spot at Marvin Key that everybody loves. And at low tide, this whole area can get exposed. Sand is out and exposed. So beautiful spot, but this tends to be the main congregating spot. Snipe Key, which is another popular sandbar, is just about a mile to the west of that spot, but a great access to get over there. But again, just keep in mind looking at the watercolor on these and learn to understand and distinguish those as you're getting to know the boating down here. So here's a bit of an aerial view of the same spot. So the corgi was in the water right here. This, you can see this nice deep turquoise water. It really shows from up here and just hugs this seagrass bed all the way out in here. But the entrance I use the flats boat, I just get right onto this tip and it lets me come up to either this sandbar or a nice quick trip out through deeper water out here to Marvin Key. Beautiful spot. What really hangs people up is the big boats will come in. This is a bigger, wider entrance. You don't have the seagrass in here. To get this entrance, you got to come across this seagrass bed. The people will come in here, and this is really hard to see. You got to be a good boater or have a track to follow to recognize this. But the seagrass bed really pinches off out here, and I've seen plenty of big boats miss that. They'll head up here and it just dead ends, or they'll cut that too far, went too far either side without being able to read the water, and they're stuck. The best thing to do is learn how to read the water, and you can make that through, and this just puts you right in that deep channel. And nice, again, I've seen big quad center consoles come flying through there without a problem, but having those tracks on there and being able to read the water makes it a whole lot safer. So that's it. I hope I didn't want to overdo the information on this one. Again, there's so many beautiful spots. I'll do one on some of the places we like to go on the reefs on the Atlantic side, where to go, where to anchor up, or where to find mooring balls next week. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week on Lower Keys Living.